All right, welcome to our second video for week 6 for English 123. For this video, we're going to talk about revising for paragraphing at the paragraph level. On the last video, we looked at the paper as a whole, revision strategy, looking at the topic sentences for the paragraphs and how they relate to and directly correlate to the thesis statement. And we also looked at an evaluative listing of questions for the introduction and the thesis statement as well, just to make sure that those things were all relating to one another. So for this, we want to just focus on the paragraph. And I chose 3 elements of the paragraph that I think are probably some of the most important for revision, things to look at. It's not exhaustive, of course. There could be other elements that could be added to this list. It's not in any way definitive or exhaustive, so you're free to approach your paragraphing in other ways as well. This is just one way or one aspect of revising for paragraphs. So the first thing I want to talk about is transitions. I think transitions are easily overlooked, they're easily forgotten or dismissed, but transitions are inevitably important for clarity and for a smooth flow of information within the overall paper and within the paragraph, between paragraphs and within paragraphs. Now our textbook, They Say, I Say, discusses transitions really well. I want to encourage you to read pages 104 through 108 on transitions. Of course, it's not assigned reading. You've probably already read it. It was assigned earlier in the course, but I want to just reemphasize that part of the reading that we had to focus on transitions. Now, the textbook defines transitions as, this is what it says: transitions are usually placed at the end or near the start of a sentence so they can signal to the reader where your text is going. So really from that we can say that a transition is really a signal. It's a cue. And so cues are important for the reader to understand, as the text says, where your paper is going, but I would also add it's also important for the reader to know where they've been. So it signals the reader where you've been. It echoes back in the reading and then it points forward. So I recommend using transitions between paragraphs at the beginning of each paragraph. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily redundant with the same type of transition. In fact, on pages 104 through 108, it gives you a listing of different types of transitions to be used. So you may consider looking through that listing and then picking out transitions that you think will work best for you. And you maybe have 3 or 4 of them that you use throughout your paragraphs or between your paragraphs, because what that will do is will help the reader see, okay, this is how this paragraph connects to the next paragraph. Because really, say for example, if you use a transitional phrase like in addition to. So if you're beginning a paragraph with in addition to, it's referring back. It's saying, in addition to what I've said prior, what's coming next, it also relates. So in addition to X, what I've said before, Y is ... In addition to X, one can also note that such and such is this. So that's just to give you a very general explanation, but there's other transitional phrases that you can use. So I would definitely refer to our text for assistance with transitions. So transitions help the reader understand the connections being made within the paragraph and between paragraphs. So it fills in the gaps. A transition is a bridge between information. It's connective tissue between paragraphs and within paragraphs. Transitions can also be used between the topic sentence and the explanatory details of a paragraph. It can be used from a topic sentence to a quotation. A way of introducing a quote, which we will get to a little bit later, is also important. It's vital. for the reader to understand what's being discussed in the paragraph and in the paper. Now, as a reader, we as readers, we don't really notice transitions. They just are so naturally written into an essay or an article that we don't really necessarily, we read them without realizing that they're there because the transition is so smooth. And that's really what we want. We want smooth transitions as writers. So even though as a reader we're not aware of them, as a writer we want to use them deliberately, very deliberately. So in your revision, I would be looking for places to add transitions, to smooth out transitions, and to bridge over information that really will help the reader understand how things are really connecting in your paper. All right, so the next item that I want to talk about is the topic sentence. Now, of course, we talked about that a little bit in the last video, but the topic sentence is really the thesis statement of every paragraph. Every paragraph in your essay should have a topic sentence. The topic sentence to the paragraph is what the thesis is to the essay. So they're just as important, but just on different scales of information. So the paragraph really is a mini essay in itself. It has a thesis statement or topic sentence, supportive and explanatory detail, and a conclusion. So you want to ensure that every paragraph has a topic sentence, and that every topic sentence, as I said before, correlates to the thesis statement. So the topic sentence is the main idea of the paragraph, and then all of the remaining detail within that paragraph should correlate to the topic sentence. So we want to look at transitions, topic sentences, and the last thing here is quoting. So for quoting, it's very common, unfortunately, for quotes to be what you may call just dropped into a paragraph. There's no supportive or connective detail that roots that quote into the paragraph. It's just paragraph information and then all of a sudden a quote. And the quote just comes out of nowhere, and it kind of appears as though the quote is out of place. So our textbook in page 45, it talks about the dangling quote. So I want you to avoid dangling quotes. In each of your paragraphs, for any of the quoted information that you're using, I want you to evaluate that quoted information to see if it's a dangling quote. Okay? And if it is, then I want you to follow the steps listed in the textbook to how to resolve that, to provide an introduction or an introductory phrase for that quote so that it's more integrated and framed into the paragraph. So when we integrate a quote into the paragraph, it becomes rooted into the paragraph, it's more connected to the topic sentence, and it better supports the topic sentence. When we integrate the quote, it is also transitioned into the paragraph much better, and so the reader can better understand why the quote is there and how the quote is actually supporting the point being made in the topic sentence. We don't want to leave it there, though. We want to explain the quote, and this goes back to the Essay Essentials PowerPoint that I provided last week. We want to explain the information that we provide in our paragraphs, explain the quotations that we make. And that's also discussed on page 48 in the They Say, I Say textbook. So you want to look at explaining and examining and analyzing your quotations, not just putting them in the paragraph, not just dropping them in, but actually integrating them into the paragraph and then explaining them, analyzing, talking about them, emphasizing the parts of the quote that are important. So after you've explained the quote, you can begin to pick apart different phrases within the quote that are more important. So an entire quote is not necessarily all important. There's only going to be maybe parts of it that are really important. So you want to highlight those most important points and emphasize them and provide significance to those quotes as to why you've included them in the paragraph. Another item here, we want to keep the quotes to 4 lines or less. With quotes that are more than 4 lines, then you need to block quote them. Block quoting, unfortunately, takes up a lot of room in a 10-page paragraph, 10-page paper. So we want to keep block quotes to a minimum. A minimum, I would say, maybe of 2. I wouldn't go more than 2 block quotes in a paper. No block quotes should be more than 6 lines, I would say. So and that's for APA and MLA guidelines. Anything that's more than 4 lines of text needs to be in a block quote format, but I would limit block quoting to no more than 2 in an entire essay. Otherwise, you're eating up a lot of space within your essay and you're not giving yourself enough space to actually explain and discuss your quotes that you're using. So those are just some items I want to provide you to consider when you're doing your revision for your draft. So we're looking at quoting, we're looking at topic sentences, and we're looking at transitions for this round of revision. And then for the last video, we're looking at topic sentences and how they're aligning and correlating with the thesis statement. So if you follow each of those for this revision for your second draft, you're going to be that much closer to producing a quality draft for your third paper. All right. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and I can certainly clarify any of these details. And looking forward to reading your second drafts. All right. Thank you.